Have you ever stopped to think that maybe we've been asking the wrong question this whole time? Like, everyone wants to know what the meaning of life is, right? But what if biology had already answered this billions of years ago, and we simply weren't paying attention? Today, I'm going to show you what science has to say about this, and I guarantee you that the answer will be very different from what you imagine. Look, let's get straight to the point. When you ask a biologist what the meaning of life is, the first thing he will say is, survive and reproduce. Ready, end. Seems a little disappointing, doesn't it? Like we spent millennia building philosophies, religions, entire systems of thought, and biology arrives and says, just don't die and make more of yourself. But calm down, because this apparently simple answer hides an absurd complexity that we need to unravel. Think with me. You exist because your parents existed, and they existed because their parents existed, and so on in an uninterrupted chain that dates back to 4 billion years ago. 4 billion. Let that sink in for a second. You are the result of a lineage that has never, not once, failed to reproduce. Every ancestor of yours, from the first cell to your grandparents, managed to pass on their genes. It is a sequence of evolutionary victories so impressive that it makes you dizzy. Natural selection is brutal in this sense. She has no mercy, no morals, no purpose. It's simply a filter. What works stays, what doesn't work disappears. And functioning in this context basically means two things: surviving long enough to reproduce and ensuring that your offspring can do so too. Everything else is detail. But here it gets interesting. Biology doesn't say that this is the meaning you should give to your life. It only describes the pattern we observe in nature. It's like the difference between saying how things are and how they should be. Science does the first. The second is a problem of philosophy, of ethics, of your personal experience. And it is crucial to understand this difference because many people mix the two things and end up confused. Let's explore this further. From a biological point of view, you are a survival machine. And look, I'm not being poetic here, I'm being literal. Your body is an absurdly complex set of systems that work 24 hours a day to keep you alive. Your heart beating, your lungs breathing, your liver filtering, your brain processing. All of this happens automatically because natural selection favored organisms that did these things well. Think about your heart. It beats about 100,000 times a day, all day, non-stop, without you needing to think about it. Why? Because organisms whose hearts weren't beating properly died before they could reproduce, and their genes disappeared. You inherited a working heart because all the non-working hearts were eliminated over millions of years. It's almost scary when you think about it. Now, there is a question that always arises at this point. If the biological meaning of life is to survive and reproduce, then are people who choose not to have children living meaninglessly? And this is where we need to be very careful about this trap. Biology describes trends, patterns that emerge throughout evolution. It does not prescribe how you should live. You are not a robot programmed just to spread genes. You have a brain capable of reflecting, choosing, creating your own meanings. But what happens when we start looking at consciousness in this equation? Because that's where things get really complicated. Consciousness is probably the strangest phenomenon biology has produced. You have a subjective experience of reality. You feel things, you think about yourself thinking. This is absurdly unique in the known universe. And here there is a giant debate in science. Is consciousness just a byproduct of brain complexity, or does it have some specific evolutionary function? There are neuroscientists who argue that consciousness evolved because it gives you an adaptive advantage. Being able to simulate future scenarios in your head, to imagine consequences, to feel empathy for other individuals in your group, all of this may have increased your chances of survival. A conscious human can plan, cooperate, create tools, transmit knowledge. These abilities are powerful, but other researchers think consciousness may just be a side effect, like when you build a sufficiently complex computer and suddenly it starts doing things that you didn't explicitly program. Emergency, they call it. Consciousness may have emerged from the complexity of the brain without necessarily being directly selected. And that's kind of disturbing because it would mean that your subjective experience, everything you feel and think, could just be a cosmic accident. Look, if you're enjoying this scientific and philosophical journey, leave a like below. This really helps the channel to continue bringing content that makes you think. And it may seem silly, but the algorithm takes these signals super seriously, so every like makes a real difference. Now let's talk about something that complicates this whole story even more: altruism. From an evolutionary point of view, altruism is a puzzle. Why on earth would an organism sacrifice its own resources, or even its own life, to help another. This goes against the logic of surviving and reproducing, doesn't it? Well, not exactly. Biology has discovered that there are several types of altruism, and they all make evolutionary sense when you look closer. There is kinship altruism, for example. You help your relatives because they share your genes. Saving your brother may not benefit you directly, but it benefits the genes you have in common. And from the point of view of natural selection, what matters is the propagation of genes, not necessarily the individual. Then there is reciprocal altruism. I help you today, you help me tomorrow. This works in social groups where individuals interact repeatedly. It is advantageous to cooperate because you build a reputation as trustworthy, and this brings benefits in the long term. Vampires do this, can you believe it? Vampire bats regurgitate blood to feed other members of the group who were unable to hunt that night. And they remember who helped and who didn't. It is pure cooperation guided by natural selection. And there's even the altruism of costly signaling. You do something expensive, something that demonstrates that you have resources to spare. It's like that peacock with the huge, colorful tail. That doesn't serve any practical purpose. In fact, it even gets in the way of escaping from predators. But that's precisely why it works as a signal. The tail says, "Look how strong and healthy I am that I can afford to carry this ridiculous thing around." And females choose these males because the tail is an honest demonstration of good genetics. So even behaviors that seem to go against individual interests can be explained by evolutionary biology. But that doesn't make these behaviors any less real or less important in our human experience. You still feel love, compassion, generosity. The evolutionary origin of these feelings does not diminish their value. Now let me ask you a more complicated question. What if biology is right about the meaning of life being fundamentally about survival and reproduction, but you don't care about that? What if you want to give another meaning to your existence? This is where scientific honesty comes in. Biology tells you where you came from and why you are equipped the way you are, but it doesn't tell you what you should do with it. It's like understanding the physics of a violin versus choosing what song to play. Science explains the instrument. You choose the melody. And look, this is not a weakness of biology. It's just recognizing the limits of what science can answer. Science deals with the describable, the measurable, the testable, questions of personal meaning, of values, of subjective purpose. These are questions that go beyond the scientific method. And that's okay. We don't need science to answer everything. But there is an important point here. Even if you decide that your personal sense has nothing to do with biology, you are still operating within biological constraints. You need to eat, sleep, keep your body temperature stable. You feel pain, pleasure, fear, joy. These things are universal because they are part of our evolutionary heritage. So in a sense, you can't completely escape biology even if you want to. Think like this. You may decide that the meaning of your life is to create art. Perfect. But you will create this art using a brain that has been shaped by millions of years of evolution. Your aesthetic preferences, your emotional responses, even the way you perceive colors and shapes, all have deep biological roots. You are not writing on a blank page. You are writing on a page that already comes with certain pre-printed patterns. This raises a fascinating philosophical question. To what extent are we free to choose our own path? If our preferences, our desires, our inclinations are all products of evolution, are we really choosing or just following old programming? Well, here neuroscience has something interesting to say. Your brain is not fixed. It constantly changes based on your experiences. This is what we call neuronal plasticity. Every time you learn something new, every time you practice a skill, every time you have a meaningful experience, your brain literally rewires itself. So yes, you are working with the raw material that evolution gave you, but you are also constantly reshaping that raw material. It's like having a deck of cards. Evolution gives you the cards, but you choose how to play. And the more you play, the more you understand the rules and can start to play more strategically, more creatively, more in line with what you want to achieve. And here's something that few stop to consider. When we talk about the meaning of life from a biological point of view, we are talking about reproductive success. But what is reproductive success really? It's not just having children. It's having children who survive and have children of their own. It's ensuring that your genes continue to propagate through generations. And for the human species, this has become incredibly complicated. We can't just give birth to a dozen puppies and expect some to survive. Human babies are perhaps the most defenseless young in the animal kingdom. They are born completely dependent, and remain that way for years. Years. No other animal has such a long period of dependence. Why? Because we exchanged quantity for quality. We invest massively in each descendant. And this investment is not just from parents, it is from the entire community. Grandparents helping to raise grandchildren, aunts and uncles contributing, neighbors, friends, a whole social network. This is unique, and it has completely shaped how our species functions. This extreme parental investment also explains a lot about human emotions. Parental love is so intense because it needs to be. You have to be willing to sacrifice sleep, resources, comfort, sometimes even your own safety for this helpless little being. And natural selection, heavily favored parents who felt this overwhelming love for their children because those parents' children had a much better chance of surviving. But there is an interesting side to all this. This ability to feel strong bonds, to invest emotionally in others, to cooperate in complex networks, was not limited to biological children alone. It leaked into other domains of human life. You may feel deep love for friends, for causes, for ideas, for pets that don't even share your species, let alone your genes. So biology created this emotional machinery for a specific purpose, taking care of offspring, but the result was a being capable of loving and caring in much broader and more varied ways. It's as if evolution had created a tool so powerful that it ended up serving much more than its original function. And this is repeated in several areas. Language likely evolved for social coordination and transmission of knowledge about resources and dangers, but now we use language to write poetry, tell jokes, discuss philosophy, declare love. The tool has transcended its original purpose. Creativity. It probably started as the ability to solve practical problems, to invent tools, to find innovative solutions to survival challenges. But now we use creativity to make art, music, literature, things that have no direct practical use but that make human life infinitely richer. Now, if you haven't subscribed to the channel yet, this is the perfect time. We bring content like this regularly, delving deep into issues that mix science, philosophy, and reflection on human existence. Click on the subscribe button and activate the bell so you don't miss the next videos. Let's talk about homeostasis for a second, because this will give you a different perspective. Homeostasis is the tendency of organisms to maintain internal stability despite external changes. Your body temperature stays around 37 degrees, even when it's hot or cold outside. Your blood pH remains in a very narrow range. Your glucose levels are constantly regulated. Why does this matter for the discussion about the meaning of life? Because it shows that at the most fundamental level, life is about maintaining yourself. It's about resisting chaos, entropy, the natural tendency for everything to fall apart. You are an organized pattern in a reality that tends toward disorder, and keeping that pattern organized requires constant energy, constant attention, constant adjustments. There's a kind of poetic beauty to it. You exist against the odds. The second law of thermodynamics says that entropy always increases, that everything tends to disorder. But here you are, a pocket of complex order, of absurd organization, temporarily defying this universal tendency. Of course, you will lose eventually. Everyone loses. But in the meantime, you are here maintaining the standard, perpetuating the information existing. And information is key in all of this. Your genes are information. Information on how to build proteins, how to regulate cellular processes, how to develop a functional organism. And evolution is, in a sense, a process of preserving and modifying information. Mutations introduce variations. Natural selection tests these variations, and useful information is preserved and transmitted. So you can think of life not just as organized matter, but as information perpetuating itself through time. And when you learn something, when you create something, when you pass on knowledge, you are participating in this process on another level. You're not just passing on genes, you're passing on ideas, culture, knowledge. But let's face the elephant in the room. Even with all this biological explanation, it still seems like something is missing, doesn't it? Biology explains the mechanism, but it does not explain the feeling. It tells you that you feel love because it increases the chances of cooperation and parental care, but it doesn't tell you why love seems so important, so real, so fundamental to the human experience. And you know what? Biology doesn't need to explain this, because maybe evolutionary explanation and subjective experience are two different ways of looking at the same thing, like light being a wave and a particle at the same time. They are not contradictory, they are complementary. You can perfectly understand the neurochemistry behind falling in love, all the hormones involved, all the brain areas activated, and still feel like being in love is magical. Scientific knowledge does not ruin the experience. It just adds another layer of understanding. There are people who think that explaining something scientifically is taking away the poetry, the mystery, but I completely disagree. Knowing that you are made of atoms forged inside stars that have been dead for billions of years does not diminish your humanity. Increase. You are literally stardust thinking about yourself. This is incredible. Knowing that your brain has 86 billion neurons, making trillions of connections, creating patterns of electrical activity that somehow generate thoughts, memories, emotions. This is not reductionist. It's amazing. It is one of the most complex and impressive things we know in the universe. So what is the final answer? Does biology explain the meaning of life? Well, it depends on what you mean by meaning. If you mean evolutionary purpose, biological function, then yes. Biology answers this with crystal clarity. Survive, reproduce, perpetuate genes and information. This is what natural selection has optimized over billions of years. But if you mean personal meaning, subjective reason for existing, values and purposes that you choose for your own life, then no. Biology gives you the context, the structure, the tools, but the meaning you build. And here is the most important insight in all of this. These two things do not need to be in conflict. You can fully recognize your biological nature and still create meanings that go beyond it. You can understand that your impulses and emotions have evolutionary roots and still choose how to respond to them. It's like being a player and a game designer at the same time. You didn't choose the ground rules. You didn't choose to be born into a body that needs to eat and sleep, into a brain that feels fear and desire. But within these rules, you have enormous freedom to create, to explore, to define your own goals. And perhaps that is exactly where the beauty of the human condition lies. We are the only organisms we know capable of understanding our own biological nature and then transcending it through consciousness, culture, creativity. A chimpanzee lives its life completely immersed in its evolutionary impulses. He doesn't stop to think about whether it makes sense to compete for status or look for food. He simply does it because he was selected to do it. But you can stop, reflect, question. You may even decide to go against your impulses if they don't align with the values you've chosen. It doesn't take you away from nature. You are still part of it, but it gives you a different relationship with it. A conscious, deliberate, creative relationship. Now I want to know what you think about this. Leave it in the comments. For you, does the biological explanation resolve the question of the meaning of life, or does it leave something important out? Do you think we can find complete meaning by understanding our evolutionary nature, or do you need something more? This discussion is fascinating and I want to hear your perspective. And look, if you want us to continue making videos like this, exploring these deep questions that mix science and philosophy, consider becoming a member of the channel or making a contribution on Valo de Mai. Any amount already encourages us to continue producing this type of content. It was really worth it for watching this far and for being part of this community that thinks, questions, and seeks to understand. Let me quickly recap before I close. Biology tells us that from an evolutionary point of view, life has a clear pattern: survival and reproduction. This pattern has been shaped by billions of years of natural selection and is imprinted on every cell in your body. But this is not a prescription, it is a description. You don't have to live just for this. Human consciousness, this weird and wonderful thing that emerged from the complexity of the brain, gives you the ability to create your own meanings, to choose your own values, to set your own goals. And these meanings are as real as any biological process. They are real because you live them, because they shape your choices, because they matter to you. The truth is that you are simultaneously an animal, shaped by evolution, and a conscious being capable of reflection and choice. You are nature and transcendence at the same time. And instead of seeing this as a contradiction, how about seeing it as wealth? How deep? You carry 4 billion years of evolutionary history in your DNA. You are the result of an unbreakable chain of ancestors who survived, who adapted, who persisted through ice ages, droughts, famines, predators, disease. And now you are here, equipped with a brain capable of understanding all of this, capable of looking back and understanding your own origins, capable of looking forward and imagining your own future. This is extraordinary, and perhaps the true meaning of life is not to choose between biological explanation and the personal search for meaning. Maybe it's embracing both. Understand where you came from and choose where you want to go. Recognize your nature and decide what to do with it. At the end of the day, biology explains how you work, but it doesn't tell you who you are. That part is up to you to discover. And this discovery, this journey of self-knowledge and meaning-making, can be as guided by reason and science as it is by emotion and experience. It doesn't have to be either or, it could be EE. So the answer to the question in the title, does biology explain the meaning of life? Yes and no. It explains a fundamental and inescapable layer, but it leaves space for you to write your own story on top of this foundation. And maybe that's exactly how it should be. You are not just biology, but you are also not separate from it. You are biology that has become aware of itself and can now choose its path. And this is probably the closest thing to magic that evolution has ever produced.